because now we can expose things a lot quicker because we all have phones and we all have cameras and all of these things.
Okay.
It's like if you're a company and whatever you're making glasses, and it turns out that actually you're dumping a ton of toxic sludge into the water or into whatever, into the fields behind you, and there's schools there. It's like that will now be exposed very quickly, and there will be more competition for that.
Because I remember a while ago, there's that big...
Do you think people care, Dave? No. Now, when it comes to individuals like Dave Rubin, I really don't care about. Like, I only can handle so many disingenuous grifters out there. I'm pretty sure there's a whole pletherful, like the Officer Tatum's, the stupid twins, whatever their name is. Like, it's a whole plethora of them. But when it comes to Dave Rubin, and it's popped up on my YouTube feed, and I didn't want to click it. I didn't want to, but it's my job. So I was like, you know what? Let me take a listen. And just like I knew I was going to feel, I was disappointed and I was upset on just the dumb shit that comes out of people's mouths. Like, and I don't want to, and I would hate to think that they just don't know. They do know, but they purposely ignore all facts. You know what I'm saying? And just like regulations, which is something that for whatever reason he thinks he needs to be speaking about, regulations are needed. And if a company can't abide by these regulations, I'm sorry, but I don't care, because those things are important to regular people like myself. If your business can't pay for it or whatever the case is, then maybe you don't need to be in business. That's simple. Play by the rules. But just a few things right here when it comes to regulations. Without rules, companies might sell dangerous or poorly tested products, risking customer health and safety. Employees might face unsafe workplaces, long hours, or low pay since there are no laws to protect them. Companies could dump waste or emit harmful gases without limits, damaging air, water, and land. Without guidelines, businesses might exploit natural resources unsustainably, causing long-term harm. And we've seen this within the past couple of years when it comes to businesses not following regulation, not following rules. Bad things happen. And who's going to get the short end of that stick? Not the CEOs, not the billionaires, not the politicians. We do. We got to live in these communities, these environments where they're building their factories and polluting the air and the land and the water. We have to deal with that. They're going to drive an hour away into their nice countryside home to where it's out of sight, out of mind for them. But we got to deal with that. But let's go ahead and listen to this idiot talk about how regulations in the government should be ran.
Now, it seems like, speaking of that, a lot of people are going towards deregulation at this point.
Yeah.
And they're thinking that's going to be better for our economy, better for the average person. Where do you think that deregulation could actually hurt people?
I mean, I'm a big deregulation guy, so I would try to deregulate as much as possible. We were talking right before we started. I mean, both of us left LA. Like, LA, to do anything, to start a new business or build a studio in your home or literally do landscaping outside of your house or anything, there's an obscene amount of regulations and rules and, you know, all these things that you have to pay and all of this stuff. So where could deregulation hurt as it pertains to tech specifically?
No.
Or just the average person?
Just the average person. Now let's hear his amazing, thoughtful answer, because I'm pretty sure with all the deregulating that he wants to do, I'm pretty sure he was understanding of why they're in place and how that could harm people. Let's hear his answer. But I'm pretty sure it's some bullshit. But let's take a listen.
For any industry, like, what do you think is going to get impacted by that the worst?
I'm not really worried. Like, will there be something down the pike that they'll figure? I don't know. If you had no building codes, I think there's probably ways you could privatize a lot of that stuff, or at least make it a little more local focused than federally focused. I'm actually not worried about that at all. Like, I'm sure there is something, right?
I'm sure there is something. The whole list that I rattled off at the top of this video, I just came up with that within maybe like 20, 30 minutes, you know, because I live and I work in the real world. So I can understand how some of these policies, if they weren't in place, we'd be working 60, 70, 80 hours like they used to. Then we have my kids who are like 10, 11, 13 years old working. If it wasn't for these regulations, they will be dumping and doing whatever they want to the environment if it wasn't for these regulations. So Ben or Dave, whatever your name is, I honestly don't care. Can you do a little better? I mean, your griftiness is starting to show, and it looks bad. I don't know. Like I mean, I'm pretty sure there's something, but you know, like we'll have what? What happens if there's something? Who's gonna take care of that? Exactly, not you.
Clearly, they will do something and there will be unintended consequences. I think it's all a risk worth taking right now. Like, to me, if you just deleted, as Vivek said, if you just deleted the Department of Education tomorrow, we'll see what happens on the other side. And I actually think it's going to be a hell of a... Well,
just put it
you
back.
can just...
he said just delete it and see what happens. What kind of privilege do you have to be in to say let's just delete something like that and just see what happens? Hell, you know, if it all goes hell, then we'll just put it back and just pretend like all the bad shit just didn't happen. I want Dave Rubin to eat only from places that have no regulations when it comes to producing their food or how they grow it or whatever the case is. I want him to eat only from those places. And if he gets sick or his kids or his spouse or whatever gets sick and die, you know, it's a risk worth taking because maybe those companies profited off of that, right? I don't know. But unfortunately, people don't like to take those kind of risks because they don't have the money or the resources or the opportunities to get out of those holes. I know I don't. I can't just, man, I swear these people are disingenuous and continuing to pretend. They're pretending to have a real conversation. Nothing good, nothing productive is happening with this conversation. But I guess it's just for clicks, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, you can because it's a giant building and those people will need jobs. But you know what? It's not going to be. That's the thing. That's the thing. None of these agencies are doing what they set out to do. The EPA was basically set out to kind of keep an eye on companies that were dumping sewage into the water. But it basically became a law writing agency. So these things have become way too big. They have way too much power. And
he just explained nothing. The EPA is set to watch the companies for not polluting the land, the water, the air, whatever the case is, and they write regulations for these business to follow. So I think maybe call me crazy, but I think that's their job. So they're doing their job. But you, Rubin, Dave, hey Dave, can I call you Dave? Dave, you said they're not doing their job. But the issue is they're putting out too many laws and regulations. So I guess that's doing their job. Man, Jesus Christ.
I think if you eliminated virtually all of them, I mean, their goal is to eliminate about 300 of them. But if you eliminated virtually all of them, then what would happen? Well, most policies would be kicked back to the states, which is exactly what the founders intended. And I think that for the most part, I live in Miami. I want most of the things that I have to deal with in my life to be dealt with in Miami. And then from there, Florida. And then the stuff that we all have to deal with, say the border, that should be dealt with the federal government. But the less agencies and middlemen, I mean, this is what Trump, he started the thing about the deep state 8 years ago, and nobody really talked about that. We didn't really realize, boy, there is this thing in D.C. that just exists. It just exists, this middle management, bureaucratic nonsense.
So the deep state, so you're telling me that there's this entity behind government that's truly running the government and everything that happens. But Trump literally is filling his cabinet with individuals. If you add their network together, they're worth over $400 billion. Billion, yes, with a big fat B. And there's only like 12 of them. These 12 individuals own more wealth than all of America, other Americans. So you're telling me Trump is going to get rid of the deep state by appointing billionaires and millionaires with zero experience in government? That sounds like the deep state to me. We already know these candidates and these politicians are being bought by millionaires and billionaires. So why in the hell are we adding them into government? Am I crazy? I gotta be crazy. You know what? It is okay to be crazy, because I can't be sane and be talking like that. If that's what being sane means, I want to be crazy. I need to be crazy. I am crazy, guys. Hey, hello. What's your name? My name is Crazy. That's what I am now, is crazy, okay?
And finally, people are seeing it. So I think, I'm telling you, they're going to do a lot. It is going to be like Malay in Argentina, and it's going to happen very quickly.
What do you think the role of the government should be?
Not much. Not much. I would say the founders basically got it completely right, that everything should be dealt with at the state and local level, and then the federal government should have a couple things that they're supposed to do. So that would be border, make sure the states aren't warring with each other, interstate commerce, couple things like that, foreign policy, which back then was way less of a big issue as it is now. The government shouldn't.
I don't understand that, but I'm pretty sure he couldn't elaborate on that to save his life. But let him continue.
Do much, and especially as technology innovates and as AI comes around, like there's just going to be more and more ability for you to live the way you want without governmental interference. What does the government do particularly well? Not much. And I say that as someone that lives in Florida with a highly competent government. So, for example, 2 years.
Okay, so once again, he's talking like an individual that doesn't do any sort of critical thinking, nothing like what could happen on the other side if this shit hits the fan. You know what I'm saying? If every rule and regulation was based on the state, and let's just say every millionaire and billionaire moves to Florida, and they created their own little ecosystem and their own little country, I guess, which they could if they wanted to, how do you think that's going to affect everybody else? Or even if you live in a super red state to where they're taking away civil rights, they're taking away abortion rights, they're taking away all the rights they feel that you don't need or you shouldn't have because it doesn't line up with their own personal convictions. Where does that leave you? Exactly. And a lot of people don't have the money or the means or the opportunity to just move to another state. Individuals like, I didn't like California because I couldn't, mow my lawn, so I had to move to Florida. Like, who else can literally move across country just because they don't like something? As crazy as, doing something to their lawn, I guess. Really? Man, it must be such a great position to be in where you don't have to worry about consequences because you got the money. You got the privilege to be like, yeah, nothing really matters at this point, right? Man, people are stupid, man.
Years ago, we had Hurricane Ian, basically a Category 5 that hit Southwest Florida, demolished Fort Myers, Sanibel, Captiva, some of the barrier islands there. Immediately after the hurricane, everybody on the news was saying to rebuild the Sanibel Causeway, which is about 4 miles, was going to take 3 years. That's what everybody was saying. DeSantis basically had it rebuilt in a month because he brought in the right people. He cut regulation. I actually met one of the contractors at DeSantis's re-election night. A guy came up to me, said that he was one of the contractors that worked on it. And he said, Dave, I just want to tell you that this guy, he basically brought all the best contractors down. He took everybody to the bridge and basically said, what do we need to do? We gave him our recommendations and he started making it happen the next day. That's proper, competent governance. We're just so not used.
Okay, so once again, you cannot conflate a disaster moment with everyday life. That doesn't mean because you were able to accomplish something that needed to be done as quick as possible to everyday life. That's not how that works. Once again, regulations protect people and don't really care about the business and how much money they make. Trust me, if they was to build it within a month or a year, 2 years, they were going to get their money. They were going to get paid. They were going to get it done. It's not because DeSantis cut all regulations, so therefore, the Hulk was able to come out to team up with Captain America. No. They just did what they were paid to do. That simple. But once again, regulations with deregulating things only benefit one side of people. That doesn't help regular folks.
Used to that. We're used to what you fled in California, an ever-growing state that taxes endlessly and punishes people for success. And then it's like, how is it that I have nice, clean roads in Florida? How is it that we don't have homeless people?
He wasn't going to say that.
And then it's like, how is it that I have nice, clean roads in Florida? How is it that we don't have homeless people? We don't have no homeless people, but why do things work with no income tax?
Like even his conscience was like, bro, that's going too far. Like we can't say there's no homelessness in Florida. Like, let's just kind of dial that one back. He even had to catch himself on that. But if you look statistically, California is outdoing most countries in the world. So California is not doing bad. I'm pretty sure you can nitpick at, this and this and this. I could do that with Colorado. But when you're talking about California, they gotta be doing something right. You know what I'm saying? I'm pretty sure people who live in Florida can nitpick and say DeSantis isn't doing this and this and this and this is crazy. So once again, you're only talking from a perspective from wealthy people who just got the money to pick up and go and live across the country. Once again, I'm not saying you don't have a voice. But regular folks should not be listening to you because you don't live in our reality. And unfortunately, that means nothing to us. So try again.
In Florida, and why does Cali tax the high hell out of you and have much worse services and much worse infrastructure and a whole series of other problems? So I would say as little as the government can do is what I want it to do.
What about leaving it to the private sector?
I would leave as much as possible to the private sector. I mean, this is where, okay, so should there be some regulations around environment, let's say, because you don't want every company dumping sewage into the river. Mm-hmm. That's like the base one that most people would ask about. Yeah, I think you can have some basic regulations around that. But most things, the thing is, capitalism, the beauty of capitalism is that someone's always trying to make a better mousetrap.
Okay, so it's funny that he's going to speak about this, and this is during the time, depending on when you're watching this, when Luigi, I can't pronounce his last name, but the individual that killed the CEO of Healthcare United, and everyone's talking about how healthcare is exploiting their customers for their profits. Let's hear Dave's secret input when it comes to capitalism, which is the reason why insurance companies can do what they do. Let's hear his brilliant strategy and idea and perspective on capitalism. Let's take a listen. Take your notes.
So if you're a company that it is exposed to be doing horrible things, and this is also the beauty of the internet, by the way, because now we can expose things a lot quicker because we all have phones and we all have cameras and all of these things.
Okay.
It's like if you're a company and whatever you're making glasses, and it turns out that actually you're dumping a ton of toxic sludge into the water or into the fields behind you, and there's schools there. It's like that will now be exposed very quickly, and there will be more competition for that.
Because I remember a while ago, there's that.
Do you think people care, Dave? No. People care, but they've been caring about stuff like this, about healthcare and everything else in your dumbass example for years, for decades, and very little to nothing has been done. You know why, Dave? It's because millionaires and billionaires buy these politicians to do nothing about it. So what do you think a picture or a video is gonna do? Maybe get a few clicks, get a few articles put out there, a few videos for people like me to talk about. But if these politicians are being paid to do nothing, who cares? Who the fuck cares? Nobody. Come on.
Big oil spill. I think it was like 2008 or 2009.
Yeah.
I don't know anybody who's like, oh, that company had that big oil spill, but they're 5 cents cheaper. I'm not going to go there.
Sure,
They
well,
just look
I
at
mean-
the price. They're like, all right, well, it's cheaper. That oil spill, I didn't see it.
Right.
You know,
Well,
that's bad,
it's
but-
always tricky to get
yeah.
get people to care about things that aren't happening in their backyard,
Yes.
right? Right. When it happens in your backyard, then it's like not in my backyard, and then suddenly you're screaming about it. But if it happens miles away, you don't realize all the reasons that.
But I think he's totally missing the point. If people don't care or are just glossing over it, we need a responsible government to care. That's the whole point. If companies don't care and people who don't live in that area don't care, then what? What happens? What happens in this scenario if there's no government oversight, no regulations? What's gonna be done? Because once again, we see Rodney King get beat the hell out of. Nothing came about it. So once again, these individuals just live in like La La Land at this point, you know, and dumb asses, regular people who just kiss the ass of these millionaires buy this.
It will potentially affect you or anything else. I think the world's changing. I think the world is changing in massive ways, and it's deep. It's definitely connected to what we're talking about with Twitter and YouTube and everything else. It's like the media used to just control that Overton window in such a tight way that the stories that we would see were so slim in nature and leaving out so much. And now it's like if there's an oil spill and something really terrible is happening, it's going to be covered in new media in a completely new way, and it will get out there more. Can you force people to care about it enough so that there are different regulations? Maybe, but you know, the Exxon Valdez was a horrific oil spill. We have regulations against oil spills. The captain, I think, was drunk and fell asleep. Like, there's no system that's perfect. So I would.
Yeah, but if you take away all of it, man, hold on, guys. Hold on. If you take away all the regulations, is that going to make things better? I mean, what is going on with people? Why are people even listening to this guy? I'm just so confused. We spent like maybe 10 minutes and he literally said nothing of value. Not even to have you think like, maybe that could work. Not even a little bit. Not at all. Once again, we cannot take advice from people who profit in any way, shape, or form when it comes to these types of conversations. Like you heard him say at the beginning of this video, he's a big deregulation type of guy. So maybe he's not going to give you a counter argument for the hell of it. It's not his job to. But people are listening to him. It just blows my mind. You know what I'm saying? So, once again, guys, money will drive motives. Period. End of story. Follow the money, and I guarantee you're going to find a grifter or two, or maybe three. You know what I'm saying? But like always, guys, if you agree or disagree with anything I said in this video, let me know in the comments down below, or hit that Discord button so me and you, can have that one-on-one talk. And like always, let's have that conversation.